Okay, so I'm gonna make this video to advertise something I've been working on for quite a long time now. I hope I can get this in the algorithm well if I put it in, if I categorize it in Minecraft, as you can see, and if I were to put it, you know, in the gaming category as well, then hopefully this will get out to people. So I guarantee the only people who have viewed my videos have been my friends, my personal friends, and nobody else, because they aren't categorized by anything, don't have any hashtags on them or anything like that. So hopefully I can get this one out. But this thing that I want to advertise, I call Kingdoms, which is a project I've been working on for about not 2 years. I had this world started in about April of 2020, and I worked on it for that summer, and I never really got around to completely finishing it. And the reason is because there's so much for me to do in this project, and I'll get into what this project actually is in a minute. There's so much for me to do in this project that it's not actually really feasible for me to do everything I want to do in a short amount of time. So that's why I'm advertising this, so I can get the word out to people, and hopefully people might be interested in it and might want to both play and help me out with the project. So I wrote down a while ago a summary of game mechanics and gameplay aspects. So I'm going to read those to you now, because this is just a lobby. You're not really going to see too much as of now, because of course I need to read this to you, so I'm just going to do this. So Kingdoms is an RPG / nation building game within the modern Minecraft world in the vein of games like the Mount & Blade series, and some RPG factors mainly inspired by things like the Elder Scrolls series and Dungeons and Dragons. Kingdoms has two types of people that play it. There are the players, of course, which are the ones that actually experience the gameplay for themselves. And then there are the Game Masters, who are the overseers of the world that control everything from lore, quests, structures, events, AI, interaction, etc. So basically, they're, I guess, the dungeon master equivalent in Kingdoms. I guess that's what you could say they are. Game Masters are also responsible for preparing the world before the game actually begins. Players are responsible for respecting the rules that the Game Master has created for the world, while the Game Master in turn is responsible for being fair and balanced towards the players. Most of the time, players usually experience kingdoms in a single group, while multiple groups of players in one kingdom's world has been considered in past Kingdoms games. So, what I mean by this is I have had Kingdoms games in the past that I've done with my friends, and that most of them didn't go or didn't last very long, and that's because there wasn't much for them to do. And also, of course, it was in vanilla Minecraft, so I had much more limitations than I do here. But one thing I did try to consider was, okay, what if we made like multiple parties of players play in the same world? Because basically, Kingdoms is founded upon the gameplay is founded upon a party of players. Now, it can't really be one person, because then it kind of ruins the experience, or it takes away from the experience. It has to be a group of players, like, you know, like in this fantasy setting going about doing their own thing. Um, and I thought, well, multiple player groups would be interesting, though it's never been done before, and so I hope that we might be able to do something like that here. Um, so let me get back to it. This hopefully will change and a multiplayer Kingdoms experience will be fully realized in the future. Kingdoms is also the most organized when there are multiple game masters, and so when said game masters all have the same goals and ideas as well as the same amount of skill. So here's the thing with game masters. All you really need to know, or the skills required for a game master, is you need to be quick with commands, which isn't really that difficult. You need to know, like, you need to know vanilla Minecraft commands. You don't need to go as far in as Java, like the JavaScript code, and know what everything actually means. But you know what I mean. Just know what and have, I guess, vaguely memorized what some of the commands do. Like off the top of your head, like summon this entity or game mode that, or game mode creative, spectator, survival, etc. Um, uh, and you need to know, for this at least, you need to know the mod knowledge. So what I mean by that is you will need to know how to use these mods correctly. Now, of course, everybody who plays this is going to have to download the mods, which by the way, I'm going to have a Discord for this. And in the said Discord, I am going to have a mod downloading tutorial to show everybody how to use it or how to download all of them. And I will provide the mods that you need. And as I was saying with Game Masters, you'll need to know basic mod knowledge. So all of the mods that we have, which are a few that I can list, are like custom NPCs, which is the most used one here. Electro Blobs Wizardry. Then there's, what was the other one? Okay, so you need custom NPCs, Electro Bombs, Wizardry, Ancient Warfare, which is a new one that I've added, which might cause some problems with custom NPCs and Ancient Warfare, because they both have an NPC system that is different from each other. So eventually I'm going to have to figure out what is needed to have them both work at the same time. And a few others. So basically you need to know how to use all of those mods and how they work. Especially custom NPCs, especially that one. And also, on top of all of that, you'll need to be a quick and efficient, and I guess good, builder. It's not, if you've played Minecraft for a long time, all the things that I just spouted out probably aren't going to be that big of a deal. But I guess if you're new or you don't have much experience with mods or commands, then I guess that might be a problem. So if that's the case, then you're probably better off being a player. But if you really want to learn, then you can probably just sign up to be a game master in the Discord. So let's get on to mods. So I think I don't really need to go over this, but I'll go over it. So mods are a crucial part of the new Kingdoms game. Traditionally, Kingdoms was played in vanilla, so back then, as I previously mentioned, I used to play Kingdoms solely in vanilla, and it was quick and efficient, but it wasn't very fun for either me or the people playing it. So there you go. That's why we're using mods. Kingdoms has a ton more of potential gameplay options, with these mods. Not only that, they take away a lot of things off the Game Master's plate. So essentially beforehand in vanilla, the Game Master had to do almost everything in order to have immersion not break. And that's crucial because if the player's immersion is breaked, that really dumbs down the fun and decreases it drastically. I found, at least in my Kingdoms games that I've played with other people, that's what happens usually. Is if immersion is broken, then it can get boring very fast. Same thing, and generally the same thing if the Game Master is not compliant with what the players want. So, and what I mean by that is if a player wants to go a certain path, if the players want to go a certain path, then the Game Master should respect that and not, try to lead them in a different path. Because if that happens, then that is a sign of the world being kind of unfinished. You need to make sure that your players are within the boundaries of what you can do within the game. So you need to lay out definite rules for what they can and cannot do. Yeah. Now you might be wondering, well, what about PC performance? Well, it's not really that big of a deal. I found that half of the time, if it's not a massive mod pack like RLCrack, it's not going to crash your computer. It's not going to crash your computer, trust me. Or, wear it down, or you're not going to have lag issues or anything like that. You might have lag issues, I should say. You might have lag issues if your potato PC is, really bad potato PC, then potentially you'll get a lot of lag, but really it's not that big of a problem. Usually, I have a gaming PC, so it doesn't really bother me. But my other online friends, in-person friends, whenever we play together with mods, some of them don't have gaming computers. They usually run at 30 to even 40 FPS. So it's not that it's pretty alright. The server host is Aternos as of now. I do want to get a better server client eventually. This is just kind of a temporary one for a while. And Aternos is surprisingly good for a private server type of thing, and it's free. It's pretty powerful. So that's the thing. So there you go with compatibility. You probably won't have any lag issues, and or major ones. That's what I mean. And you probably won't have to worry about server issues. So let's go down to RPG mechanics. So a massive part of Kingdoms mechanics have to do with things akin to an RPG. There are a wide variety of them. Quest lines are the most prominent of these mechanics, with factions and guilds being the ones that have quest lines that are made up of 5 to 6 quests. Another thing is that the quality of items enhanced by the quality of tools mod, so that's another mod we have, which gives all types of tools, weapons, and armors a random quality that could range from being worthless with a ton of debuffs to being masterful with a ton of enhancements. Another thing are structures created by the Game Masters that are filled with loot and enemies that the player is encouraged to go find and clear out for a challenge and reward. So that's things like, dungeons, brigand camps, stuff like that. You'll find faction settlements, which we'll get into the factions a little later down there. But as of now, I want to go into nation building mechanics, which is probably the biggest attribute of Kingdoms. So we have a lot to cover here. So while Kingdoms might also have a lot of RPG mechanics, it also incorporates a ton of nation building type of mechanics as well. This Kingdoms game that is in development right now, for example, um, has 4 main factions that all have their own quirks that makes them unique. All of these factions are also able to go to war with each other and have battles and skirmishes, and sieges happen in real time. Through quests, the player can join these factions and assist them in their war efforts and become a prominent figure in that kingdom. When you join a kingdom, it also comes with the benefit of being able to lead an army of their troops. Each faction has troops of their own, which the player is able to recruit and fight with in their own battles. However, this comes with the requirement of owning a settlement of some sort. So the settlement itself requires 3 things to even be considered a settlement. So it needs a palace or some type of structure that the owner would reside, a population of at least 5 NPCs, and a stable food source. So a population is essential because, like real life, the bigger your population is, the more important and prominent your settlement is going to be. And also, I'm planning to have a mechanic to where you need a certain population to build like this structure. Like you need so-and-so population or so-and-so resources to build a blacksmith, for example, or something like that. Um, so let's see. The food source is also very vital. As without it, your NPC population will die out, not being able to grow in the slightest. Um, so another thing about population is that it acts as a recruitment pool. So for every one citizen can be pulled out of the citizen population for one soldier in your army. So that's how that works. So anyway, in order for a population to grow, you need more housing, as every 2 citizens in a population need at least 1 house for them to grow, for the settlement to continue expanding. If you are in a faction and you own a settlement, then that settlement belongs to players said faction as well. However, the players are not exclusively limited to joining factions. If the player wants to have a more difficult and interesting Kingdoms game, they might want to create their own faction. Creating your own faction entails that you own at least 1 settlement, which has previously mentioned 3 requirements. Once the player has done this, they are able to found their very own kingdom and all the mechanics that come with it. These include diplomacy, making your own types of troops, and conquest. That's all I wrote for the summary, so I'll explain the rest. So about that, starting your own faction. So founding and making your own settlement is not as easy as it sounds, because getting NPCs themselves, or like getting citizen NPCs, is very hard. I have stated, or I have thought this in the past, I've told it to friends that at least experimented with this world, that in order to get citizen NPCs, you need to either need to free them from like imprisoned brigand camps. If brigands like have prisoners, then you can free them and have them integrate them into your population. Or you can get a random event where like a bunch of freelancers and just free peoples or people in flight suddenly stumble upon your settlement, which really depends on if the game master wants to give them that or not. But I'd say for all game masters, it'd probably be like a very low chance of happening for a random event. So that's why starting your own settlement is very hard. Yeah, there's that. So let's go over these 4 main factions now that I mentioned. So you have the Kingdom of the Vegas. So I'll go over these guys first. So these guys are lizard people that live in the swamps. And their main, so like every single faction has a little quirk to them. So the Vega's quirk is that their armies and their troops and their units are the best in the whole entire game. They're very expensive, they have good equipment, and they're very powerful. However, they only have one city, and that city has a small population. It's because of lore purposes. Yes, this whole world that I will probably not show in this video because that would like extend the runtime for a very long time, like probably 2 hours or something like that. And I don't want to make a video that long because it takes too long to process in the YouTube video creator or whatever the fuck it's called. So that's the Vegas essentially. Powerful troops, but very hard starting position overall, like in the general scheme of things. Then you have the Tribex. So the Tribex are, like lore-wise, they're new to the land. They're descendants of survivors of an old kingdom that was run down by pillagers. Well, that's their main enemy. They're surrounded by pillager like territory, which is it's a region in the map that is just filled with pillagers and all of that. So they're kind of right in the middle of that. So it kind of makes it an interesting starting position if you join them, to where you'll have to fight your way through pillager territory to where only then after you get through pillager territory will you able to like meet up and have diplomacy with other factions. Their armies consist of spearmen and halberdiers and crossbowmen, but they're kind of expensive. So that's their army. So then we have Kalrangia. So the Kingdom of Kalrangia is like personality-wise, I imagine them to be a stereotypical kind of Western European type of thing. So they are they have like 3 settlements, 3 or 2. They have one large city and a small town to their, I believe it's east. I'll have to go and see. But they have the most balanced kind of starting position. Their armies are average. They're not as good as the Inquisitors. Oh, what was that? Anyway, not as good as the. No, I think that was the Dark Medieval. Yep. Okay. And yes, we do have the Dark Medieval mod. I guess I should mention. Dark RP roleplay mod, I think it's called. I can't remember the exact name of the mod, but here's some of the stuff for it. Anyway, about Kalrangia, their armies are not as good as theirs or theirs. Well, these guys are kind of even with their like elite, like super elite troops. Yeah, overall, they kind of have like they're kind of like the most balanced starting position and kind of the easiest to join. Well, not easiest. These guys are the easiest to join. The Golgars. So the Golgars are centaur nomadic people. They're all tribesmen in the steppes, the Golgar steppes. That's why they're named the Golgars. And they have a lot of their troops, like their armies aren't very good per se. They have a lot of horse archers, they have a lot of lancers and stuff like that, of course, you know, because they're horsemen, technically. But that's that's their main gimmick. They're like divided all up into tribes and all that. So the gold being like, you know, being part of the one of the Golgar tribes could be interesting because you could you know, unite all the tribes under one banner and then take on all the other factions. Which could be cool. It could be a cool, interesting idea. Now let's go all the way over here into rules and mechanics. So I don't think I'll really go over the rules, like the game rules exactly over here, because I kind of really explained them in the summary, kind of. In the lobby, there's this mechanic NPC which tells you about faction relations, player to player diplomacy, and player to AI diplomacy. Tell me about conquest, tell me about establishing your own faction, bosses, taverns, and inns, which all have their own mechanics and kingdoms, um, which I'm going to add more onto this mechanic NPC eventually, but as of now, this is all he's got to tell you. Um, and there's this attribute station, which I don't believe I actually want to use. I'm probably going to remove this because I can't exactly figure out a way to use it properly. Because, you know, if a player dies and they lose, you know, all of this, all of these traits. And then we have classes down here, or kits that you start off with. These are things used to encourage the player or players to go in a certain direction. For, you know, so for the mage class, you know, basic electro blob stuff, you are encouraged to go for a wizard route if you use this kit, you know, stuff like that. So that's all for kingdoms. That's a very kind of basic explanation. There's still a bunch I could discuss. I could discuss lore. I could discuss everything that is required for us game masters to do. But really, if I want to do that, I'd probably explain it in the Discord that I'm going to link in the description of this video. And I can just go on and on about this thing that I've had in the works for a very long time. So, yeah, that's all I got for you. See ya.